Hello, this is Dean Rader, and welcome to another installment of Poems That Changed Me. Today's poem is a poem I love dearly. I seem to love every poem dearly, but this one I really love dearly. It's by my fellow Californian, Wendy, who is of both Hopi and Miwok descent. She's originally from Oakland. This is a poem called Alien Seeds, and it's got a little epigraph thing. And it's this: on reading a book about plants growing wild in California. One thing I really love about this poem, if you look at it, is the smart line breaks and the really cool sounds that merge with the poem's very strong but complex political undertones. Alien Seeds. How is it that I did not know the gold hillside near my house is as foreign to the land as any intruder? As the straight boards and liquid rock poured onto the land where my house stands. All these, wild oats, the strangling grass, even the succulents with the secret of moisture within, the tumbleweed rode on the tails of strange beasts or were caught in the wool of Spanish sheep. How can I not feel the killing, the massacre that cleared the valley, the foothills, the mountains of my kind? For every seed, its wagon train. Rhizomes colonize underground, spines catch foxes on their little hooks. Barbed wire crosses our nations, and tap roots suck the stolen dew, no matter how dry the desert. Thistles thrive on the most ravaged flesh. Invaders ruthlessly kill just as the bloodthirsty men who drove their cattle from shrine to shrine lowered their rifles, aimed, fired. The elders have always known this. They fast and pray, then hunt for exactly the right kind of grass. As their grandmothers before them, they pick a few, never the first one, never more than they need. They return home with great art in their eyes, and now they walk forever with empty hands, baskets made thin with ribs sticking out. Beads, yarn, safety pins replace bare grass and willow. Eucalyptus rolls its seeds on the ground. We slip and fall, hurtle into the sacrifice. Gather not grass, but sorrow in our hands. Vanishing Americans, endangered species, vermin and weeds, call it what they will. Rock-hard places where bones rattle down. So the main thing this poem changed for me is this notion of the controlling metaphor. I had really read and loved, and probably will talk about, John Donne, who uses the controlling metaphor of the flea or the three-person God throughout. But what Rose does here is take this notion of the alien seed and work it and rework it and rework it and rework it until it becomes ground into the very soil, the very topsoil, the fabric of the poem. So she plays with a bunch of different ideas that we use all the time, and she makes us aware of how something like an alien seed, an alien species, this notion of the invasive species, and indigenous plants have these mirroring metaphors in the natural world, but also in the human world, in the colonized world. So when she writes, this is a really magical moment in the poem. She says, all these wild oats, the strangling grass, even the succulents with the secret of moisture within, the tumbleweed rode on the tails of strange beasts. Sounds like Cormac McCarthy there. Or were caught in the wool of Spanish sheep. Great rhyme of beasts and sheep in there. But there, look at this little turn here. How can I not feel the killing? Great sounds, great line. The massacre that cleared the valley, the foothills, the mountains of my kind. For every seed, its wagon train. Rhizomes colonize underground. Spines catch foxes on their little hooks. So this notion of the colonizing species of plants coming in is really mirrored in this larger notion of the colonizing species of whites that came in and took over native territories. So you have a kind of a double colonization. Both the plants that were indigenous to this area as well as the people that were indigenous to this area. And in the dual removal of both, it's like exponential removal of these double forms of indigeneity that are tied to a place and that help make the place. And once you remove one, you remove the other. And both forms of erasure, both forms of removal, are equally damaging. So one of the things that I love about this poem is how Rose uses these kind of botanical, ecological metaphors of like the invasive species, and invasive seeds, alien species, to raise these larger notions about colonization, right? We think about these terms in terms of human, but also in terms of plants. But what about if we think of botanical, if we read botanical things through the lens of human things? This poem is absolutely spectacular. It's one of my favorites to teach. And it's a poem that I write about a little bit in the same piece that I talked about last week with the HD poem, and one of the most underrated American poems. I hope that everyone goes out and reads and memorizes and teaches this poem. I love it, and it changed a lot for me.